The next, we are on 7.1, approval of the meeting agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you. In a second? Second. Jay moved and Debbie seconded to approve the agenda. Any other comments? No. Ava?
I agree.
Riley?
I agree.
Okay. 4. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. 5-0 on the agenda. Report out on action taken in closed session. There was no action taken in closed session, so there's nothing to report to. Next, we are on 9.1, which is recognition of MVLA athletic teams. Dr. Meyer, would you like to do us the honors?
I would be honored. Thank you. First of all, welcome everyone. It's so nice to see all of you here. We have 3 teams that we would like to recognize tonight. And I would like to say that we're very grateful to all of our teams who did so well this year and all of our student athletes. So we're very proud of the hard work that you do. And when we see you out on the field and in the gym, we know this is just the tip of the iceberg of all of the time that you spend in practicing and representing our district so well and representing yourselves so well. So with that, we're going to go in this order. I think we're going to start. If I could ask, and how it will go, I will ask the coaches, if you don't mind, to come up to the front and then introduce your team. So we're going to start with Neem Nguyen, and he is our Mountain View High School wrestling coach. And in this case, we had a wrestler who was the first CIF state qualifier in Mountain View history. So welcome, Coach.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Thank you, board members, for having us. With me is Jack Heck and his father, who's also the assistant coach as well. I'll talk a little bit about the wrestling season that starts. We had a total of 38 members. This was from the start of the year, 16 grown tremendously in size. 4 of those are female wrestlers. During the season, we were in the lower league, the El Camino division, which consists of 7 teams. Our record team was 7-0. When we went to Santa Clara Valley finals, out of 14 teams, we were 3rd in those teams. Jack, as an individual wrestler, came in 1st place among those 14 teams. Top 5 of those wrestlers move on to the next, which is Central Coast section, consisting of 72 schools. Within those 72 schools, Jack competed and was placed 2nd out of those 72. And the top 3 from CCS moved on to state. And that's where he really made history. Is for the first time in our history, we have one individual that made it that far. It's a very competitive sport. For him to have gotten that far, not just as a wrestler, but also as a scholar athlete as well. So he's a 4.0 student, working off season just to get to be that competitive to make it this far. So I'll open the floor to Jack.
All right.
I mean, I didn't really prepare anything, but yeah, it took a lot to get here. We were sort of like an underfunded team. We're really young. It's 5 years. It's a 5-year-old team, and last year was COVID, and we had a 6-week season, and we only wrestled 6 dual meets, which typically seasons are always like very tournament oriented and not dual meet oriented, where it's just one match. And so if you would be consider yourself lucky if you got 6 matches last year, and I think many of our wrestlers did not get even a match. So it was really tough, and it was hard to even consider a season. So I may have been the first state qualifier, but last year kind of took a lot. And I couldn't be here without Coach Nim's son, Tainuan. Tainuan, I think he should have been the first state qualifier, but because of COVID, he wasn't. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations, Jack. Wrestling was as you know, one of the very last sports that was allowed to do anything. So it's really tremendous, despite so many barriers, that you made it this far, and just we're very proud.
Thank you.
And so next, we're excited to, and we're going to go to our other sister campus, Los Altos. And Los Altos High School girls soccer team, Division I soccer, really had a tremendous effort and of course made it to the playoffs successfully. And so with that, would like to recognize that girls soccer team. And I'm wondering, do we have someone to speak? Is this, Zanet?
Yes.
Oh, hello, welcome. Zanet Mahik?
Zanen Mahic.
Zanen Mahich, okay.
Thank you for allowing me to
Thank
speak.
you.
It's been an unforgettable season. We were the underdogs coming into it last year during the COVID year. They didn't win a game, and the morale was low going into the tryouts, and we were projected to finish last or second to last. And then once I saw the girls come out tryouts, I knew that wasn't going to be the case because this area produces such good level of soccer, especially on the girls' side. So a couple games in, I was like, okay, we're going to string some things together. Obviously, we hit a rough patch, probably like 5-6 games in, and then something just turned around and we won 9 in a row. Playoffs came around. They were scared to go into playoffs. They're like, we don't want to go to open division. We don't want to go to D1. But once the game started going, it was so much fun to watch them play. I'm excited to come back next year. We have a very young team. We lost only 2 starting seniors. So, I mean, Mountain View High School is going to have to watch out for us next year. But overall, I'm very thankful for the opportunity that was given to me by Michelle and Wynn. And thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak. And unfortunately, none of my girls were able to come out tonight. They'll have practice, other obligations, but I know a lot of them wanted to be out here. And I just hope that I was able to represent them in the best way possible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You said 9-0 and you just turned it around. So I just want to commend you because that doesn't happen on accident. And so your leadership and coaching. And thank you to Michelle Noah, the athletic director, who's here tonight, and Wynn, of course, for your leadership. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, and speaking of the friendly rivalry that we have Mountain View High School's girls soccer team. They won the CCS Open Division championship. And Open Division, I think many of you know, but that is the elite division in the state of California. And so do we have Coach Panos here tonight? Or we have a representative from Mountain View High Girls Soccer. Welcome.
Unfortunately, Mr. Panos wouldn't be able to make it tonight, so I'm here on his behalf. But yeah, we just had a truly amazing season. We had so much talent coming into the season. We had 14 seniors who just really brought our team together and brought so much to the game. I mean, so much talent, but just so much fun too. And we just had such a fun season together. We won the league and moved on to the Open Division, and we got to play against our crosstown rivals, St. Francis, in the Open Division finals for CCS, which was a game like no other. Such a fun game, and we were able to come out on top with that, putting us in the highest division for the state tournament, which was, again, just an incredible experience. And we unfortunately lost in the semifinals, but it was such an amazing year that I will definitely always remember forever.
Well, thank you. Could you share your name and how about position as well?
I'm Kate Stone, and I'm a junior on the team, and I play mostly outside back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. We're very fortunate you're returning then. So we'll have a senior here who's a great spokesperson as well as an athlete. And so congratulations to you. And please, all of you share with your teammates that we're just very proud of the work that you do. So
Thank you.
congratulations. That concludes our wonderful recognitions. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to, we have a resolution that Dr. Meyer, would you like to present the resolution?
Yes, thank you. Tonight, we have a resolution that is recognizing and celebrating National Bilingual Multilingual Learner Advocacy Month and the month of April. So just briefly, I'll share some highlights. Whereas Mountain View Los Altos High School District takes pride in joining educational institutions throughout the country in recognizing April 2022 as National Bilingual Multilingual Learner Advocacy Month. And whereas this month recognizes bilingual multilingual learners and that they are one of the fastest growing student populations in US schools, and that this population contributes multiple assets to schools and adds to the rich diversity among students. And whereas 5.4% of students enrolled in Mountain View Los Altos High School District are categorized as English learners, and approximately 27% are fluent English proficient students. And whereas this month calls on stakeholders at all levels to examine the diverse needs of bilingual, multilingual learners and to build an inclusive and respectful culture. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Mountain View Los Altos High School District Board of Trustees does hereby adopt this resolution upon approval to honor this month and recognize the significant impact bilingual and multilingual education has on student achievement.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. I would take a motion to approve this.
Adoption of resolution 21/22-35.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that. Would anyone like to speak to it or say a couple comments before we vote or not? No? Okay. All right, Ava, what do you say?
I agree.
Okay, Riley?
I agree.
Board, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion is passed 5-0. All right, next we have board member reports. Any board member wish to make a report? No, I only had one, and that is, actually, Dr. Meyer and I both went to the city of Los Altos and Mountain. Was someone else on that call too? We did a virtual state of the cities of Los Altos and Los Altos Hills. And it's very nice to hear what the other elected officials and entities, the cities that our schools work with are doing, and their celebrations and their challenges. So very interesting. No one else? Okay. Next, we will have student board member reports. Oh, let's see. How about Riley, you go first this time?
Sure. Last week was a big week at Los Altos. We had our Clash of the Classes week, which is super exciting because it was the first time that we've had it since my freshman year. And so my class is the only one that has had it. And so it was really nice to kind of go back in time and make this year feel more normal. It was a super fun week. We had lunch activities every day, including a dunk tank where Miss Woolfolk was dunked and a lot of other students. Surprisingly, a lot of students volunteered to get dunked, and it was a super fun day. And it was also the hottest day of the week, which happened to work out. We had a jumpy house obstacle course one day, and then the last day was the famous mystery bucket where students had to sing song lyrics, and if they got it wrong, nacho cheese was dumped on them, or ranch, or salsa. And a lot of students decided to go with no poncho. So that was really, really fun to watch. And then the actual Clash of the Classes night, it started at 6. We had food trucks, and there was a really decent turnout. Less than my freshman year, but I think it's because a lot of people didn't know about it. And so I really think it'll pick up steam in the future years. And then the night rally itself was super fun. There was blindfolded dodgeball, which is actually terrifying because I could see, but I was getting nailed. So I don't know how that really worked out. But we had a mattress run, and we had a lot of other fun games. Sadly, the juniors came out on top, then the sophomores, and then the seniors beat the freshmen by 1 point, which was not ideal, but it was a super fun week and a super fun night. We also had our senior panoramic picture last week, which happened to be on yellow, or our class color Spirit Day, so a lot of us were wearing neon, so hopefully we'll be seeing the picture. And then they talked to us about graduation, which is super exciting, especially since it's the first normal graduation that they'll have been within the last 2 years. Another fun event that went on today was TEDx LHS, where a lot of really, really talented students were speaking about topics they're passionate about. And I was able to watch it for 2 periods. My teachers were super understanding, and they let me go see it. And I even got to see the one and only Tomo, who's always here. And he talked about journalism, and it was a super awesome talk. We have our annual color run coming up this weekend on April 2nd. So I highly recommend going, registering, even just walk or run in it. And it's a really big fundraiser for athletic department. And we haven't had it in a few years, but if any of you guys have been there before, it's super fun. Our ASB election campaigning started this week. And actually the future board member who will take my position is unopposed. So I'll take her to the next board meeting so you guys can all meet her. And her name is Sadie Grayton. And finally, the last board meeting was right before the mask mandate went off. And so that's been super interesting to see how that's happened. I'd say definitely a lot more people don't wear it now compared to the first week. But I'd say in all my classes, it ranges between about 1 to 10 people in the class who don't wear their mask. And none of my teachers don't wear their mask right now, but it has increased over time. And I'd say all the teachers and everyone seems really just flexible and understanding if you want to, if you don't want to, and there's no judgment, I feel like, going around.
Okay, does anyone have questions for Riley? Okay. Ava?
Okay, so for Mountie, this week is our Battle of the Classes week. And our theme is Welcome to the Jungle. So we're having spirit days every day of the week. Today was Explorer Day, tomorrow's Construction Day, Wednesday is Formal, Thursday is Country versus Country Club, and then Friday is Class Colors. We're also having lunchtime activities, including a water balloon toss, a kickball tournament, spike ball, and capture the fly. And then on Friday, we will have our night rally like West did. We have our athlete signing day for our seniors who will be playing sports in college this Thursday at 3:45. And we also announced our prom theme for this year, and it's a night in Athens. It was fun and for DPL, and it's going to be at the DoubleTree in Santa Fe. Last Friday, we had our Out of the Darkness walk. It was March 18th, so not last Friday, but the Friday before that. And that was held by our ambassadors program, and it was for suicide prevention, and it was part of Mental Health Awareness Week. The Out of the Darkness walk and event included 11 community mental health partners, organizations, and they talked about various services that they provided that are available to teens in the Bay Area. We also had 3 speakers, including the former mayor of Palo Alto, a mental health clinician from El Camino, and a Stanford student. And there was also performances from our music and choir department. It was a really, really cool event. I was really impressed, and it was very well done. ASP is going to be putting on our second Stanford blood drive of the school year on April 8th, so we're planning that right now. And our music department went to Hawaii last week. And I've heard that was a really great trip. I'm sure it was. It's Hawaii. And then our madrigals will be going to Switzerland, I think next week or end of this week. So I know they're all looking forward to that. And then lastly, we also finalized our ASB elections, and I'll be back next year.
Yay.
Yeah, that's it.
Yay. Congratulations on that. Okay, and questions for Ava? No, okay. Next, we're going to move on to Students of the Month. And I will let Ava go first this time and present her students.
Okay, so Mountain View High School is very proud to recognize Gabe Salaya as our March 2022 Student of the Month. Gabe is a current junior at MVHS in our special education program. He is a dedicated and uplifting student who is passionate about music and making connections with his peers and teachers. He is involved in school activities like Spartan Buddies, Pep Band, and Dance Spectrum. Gabe's greatest passion and first language is music. He does taiko drumming, conducting, percussion, and formerly trombone. At school, his band members and instructors truly feel as though Gabe makes the instrumental music and performing arts department a better place. Gabe is also an avid MVHS sports fan. At every game, he motivates his peers in band as well as Six-Man Spirit Club and the cheer team. Gabe's teachers describe him as a dynamic young man with a heart of gold who is loved by everyone and a role model for all students at MVHS. He is outgoing, friendly, and school-spirited. He radiates love and compassion for all people and makes the world and MVHS a happier place. When you see him around campus, he's always ready to give you a fist bump or the friendliest wave from a distance. Outside of school, Gabe is an assistant instructor for the Silicon Valley Down Syndrome Network's taiko classes. He also enjoys working out at Fit Los Altos through their Fit Buddies program. Congratulations, Gabe.
Okay. So can you ask some questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does he have something to say first?
Oh.
No? Okay.
Yeah, so ask the question.
So Gabe, congratulations. Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions? So I noticed here that you like music and there's a couple of instruments. I was wondering if you could tell me which one is your favorite instrument. Okay. No. You like the trombone? Okay, thank you. Can I ask you one more question? Is that okay? What do you like most about school? Because it's obvious that Mountain View High School likes you and you're making it a happier place. What do you like about it? And being my shout out is So I have one more. Do you think you could give each of us a fist bump? Could you give me a fist bump here, Gabe? Can you give me a fist bump? Okay, all right, okay.
Well done.
Well done.
Very well done. Special paper for you, a certificate. For being student of the month, and we're all gonna come up and have a picture with you. Okay? Stand up. Okay, we're gonna have a picture with you, okay? Sure, everybody, I can do this one, but, and we can do this one right now. Can you do it this one? No. Just stand here and have your picture. Thank you for being here. All right. Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Okay, and next we will have was also student of the month. Kara.
Los Altos High School is proud to honor Kira Chatwin as our March Student of the Month. It's a privilege to recognize all of her accomplishments throughout her time at Los Altos High School thus far. If you can think of an activity, I guarantee you Kira is involved. She's a big part of the Los Altos High School community, participating in speech and debate, field hockey, the Broken Box Acting Company, Green Team, ASI, and extracurricular activities outside of school. Kira is top ranked nationally for parliamentary debate. As a junior, she is captain of the team and enjoys the competitive atmosphere and privilege of constantly learning about new topics. She likes the thrill of the fast-paced competitions where she is allotted a topic, position, and 20 minutes to prepare her debate. Her public speaking skills have also allowed her to thrive in the theater world. She has been acting since she was younger and joined the Broken Box acting class at Los Altos her sophomore year. She played a significant role in the Los Altos musical Mamma Mia and is looking forward to Broken Box's upcoming show, which is her favorite production so far. Kira plays field hockey, joining her freshman year with little experience, but growing considerably and loving the team. She is grateful she tried something new and hopes to continue playing intramural sports similar to field hockey once she graduates high school. Additionally, she is very bright in the STEM world, being one of the few juniors in the Advanced Scientific Investigation class at Los Altos High School. She is working on a project with the goal of looking into cellular biology and focusing on Alzheimer's. Her project won the prestigious Santa Clara Valley Science and Engineering Fair, going up against many talented teams, and she is now moving on to the California State Science and Engineering Fair. It is a very exciting accomplishment, and we are looking forward to seeing how her amazing project will do at the state level. She's going to continue the class her senior year and will continue to do amazing things within ASI. In her limited free time, Kira enjoys doing puzzles, spending time with her cats, and enjoying her go-to ice cream flavor of mango sorbet. Congratulations, Kira Chatwin, for receiving March Student of the Month and for all of your amazing success and dedication to give back to your community and school. We can't wait to see all of your accomplishments coming your way in the near future.
All right. Or do we have some questions for here?
Hi, Kira. Thank you for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Which part of
Alzheimer's are you looking into? That's a pretty broad statement saying that you're looking into Alzheimer's.
So I'm currently looking into the clearance mechanisms for the buildup of amyloid beta or other harmful substances in the brain. So I'm trying to synthesize new analogs of this drug that's going to hopefully target receptors better. And by doing so, we'll be able to reboot the immune system in the brain, which will then hopefully clear more of these plaques and decrease the effects of Alzheimer's.
Do you mind if I put you on the spot?
Yeah, of course.
So can you give us a sample of something you've done in Broken Box?
Oh boy. I don't actually remember things. The way that I like get it out of my system, because we go through like 4 productions a year, so you kind of have to forget and relearn pretty fast. So our last show was a couple weeks ago, and I no longer remember anything.
No problem, no problem. So tell us, so your other things you said you're interested in is STEM. So I assume you're looking to go, maybe, I know you're only a junior, but are you looking to do something in STEM? Is that where your interest lies? So
Yeah,
far?
so I have a broad range of interests, which is probably reflected in my confusing assortment of extracurriculars. But I think so far I've determined that in college, I'd kind of be interested in doing a double major that would go somewhere with public policy and chemistry, because I feel like that gives me a lot of options so I can continue to be indecisive, but it also gives me a broad reach of being able to do a bunch of stuff that I'm interested in multiple fields.
Well, congratulations. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Around the debate, you're given a topic, just a random topic, or do you have any idea what the topic is?
No, you have no idea.
So can you tell me, and I'm worried now that you might not remember, do you remember any of your past topics that were thrown at you and you had 20 minutes to figure out what you were going to do to debate it?
Yeah, so we recently went to state quals, and our topic for around there, the last round we had there was California should repeal Proposition 13.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I just have one more question related to debate, and is that pretty stressful to come up with everything you're going to say in 20 minutes? And
Yeah, it can be, but at the same time, you know that your opponents are also having to come up with everything in 20 minutes. So the level of preparation is pretty much the same. You can also write back files and do preparation beforehand on broad topics to give you a basic understanding of arguments that you could run about the economy, for example, and then you can just apply them to specific scenarios in rounds.
interesting. Thank you very much. And I must say that we're very proud of both of our students of the month. Shows such a range of students that we educate at our schools, and we are happy for every single one of you. Picture with Sarah. The students may want to go home if they're tired and have homework, rather than stay for the whole meeting. Thank you for coming, and thank you for bringing your families and so on. Okay, next we will move on to Superintendent's Report. Dr. Meyer.
Yes, thank you. I won't take it personally. I was telling Kira that the Venn diagram for public policy and chemistry has a very small overlap, and I'm fascinated by that combo. All right. Well, to start out, I wanted to show, here we have a picture of the Out of the Dark walk, one of a few, and just a wonderful event that was held on the 18th. And to, in this update, we'll just have a few photos of Writers Week, which was held at Los Altos High, the YMCA Award for the ambassadors from Project Cornerstone, some climate committee information because this board approved a climate resolution, a Latino Summit shot, the Out of the Dark walk that shone a light on suicide prevention, and information about future speaker series. So to kind of circle back to comments that were made by Riley, I too have been looking at inside the classrooms to gauge who is wearing a mask and who isn't. And I do notice that there's just a tremendous amount of respect on both sides of this decision, and just, you know, kudos to our community for respecting each other so beautifully. We are continuing with testing, and so thank you to Inspire, which is, you know, we do see the numbers going down a little bit, but it is still available, and our community as well is still taking part in that testing. And we will have tests that will go home prior to spring break in April, much like we had in February. So one of, you know, the amazing things that MVLA participates in is the Writers Week presentation. And one positive byproduct of the pandemic is that we're continuing to have some writers Zoom in. So they were able to reach writers from all over the world. So you can see some of the young adult authors and other authors that were there, some in person, but many on Zoom. So we do anticipate that will be something that continues, that will keep that and open greater access to our campuses. And great job by our MVLA Foundation and our Los Altos staff. Just wonderful variety, and as usual, very much enjoyed. I also wanted to share the Project Cornerstone Award banquet, or a Zoom meeting, was held last week, and the Mountain View High School ambassadors received a Caring School Climate Award. So special thanks to Lauren Camarillo and our ambassadors within the classroom. Our Spartan Paws and others were recognized for the great work that they did, and just really well done presentation by the YMCA. They came out and videotaped our classes, and just well-deserved award. And this was something that you may see if you want to look at the video on the website. Also wanted to share, we had our first inaugural meeting with our green teams, and this was as a result of the resolution that we had last year. Green teams from Mountain View High and Los Altos High met in this boardroom, and we will have our next meeting in April. And during this time, we went through some short-term goals, things that we would like to accomplish prior to the end of this year, and some longer term goals that the team is working on. And so some ideas that came up is really dedicating ourselves to going paperless whenever possible, using recycled paper whenever possible. A lot of discussion about plastic use and plastic water bottles. And then some longer term ideas were around how to cut down waste at lunchtime and packaging in general for everything that we use. But just a tremendous group of young people. And also we had staff from both of the high schools. We hope to get Alta Vista involved in some point as well.
Just like Nelly, were Debbie and Bill, were you guys able to go to that?
I don't think we knew about it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
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 Yeah, because we have board reps to that as well.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So great. We'll make sure that you are on the invite, definitely. And we'll get you the date of the next one in April, and it will be in the board meeting. And I know you'll look forward, you'll enjoy it. Okay, thank you. Also, we wanted to share that we had last Saturday the Latina Summit, and this is put on at Los Altos High School. And during this this Saturday event, they welcome new families to the campus. They give tours of the campus, and they have different conversations and experts who share tips about parenting teenagers in general and answer questions specifically. They also have college success information as well as information on the new ELD program. So thank you. I think everyone in this photo, you have Ariel, Perla, and Win. They participated, and it was well attended and well done. Great picture, by the way. Here's some more pictures of the Out of the Darkness walk, and their message shared that they wanted to shine a light on suicide prevention and wanted to emphasize the message that they are loved. And so you can see they put together signs, they had music, and really just wonderful time. Right here you can see they're listening to speakers. So well done. They had their t-shirts, and I anticipate this will not be the last. So that will be continuing. We also had our first speaker series in person. And so this was held on the 22nd at the Spartan Theater, and Scott Schimel was here, and he came from Southern California area, and he spoke to the 25 questions every kid must answer to build a meaningful life. And he emphasized the importance of really knowing who you are, believing in yourself as much as possible, but having that foundation to really withstand all of the temptations and diversions as you get older. And so special thanks to him for his work. And we will have our last, also in person, in our speaker series, Safia Zaloom will be speaking about kids and stating kids are watching pornography, and here's how to talk about it. And so, you know, definitely this is something that is being advertised to the older youths and parents. And this will be April 19th at 7 p.m. at the Los Altos High School Eagle Theater. She does, we've seen some of her work. She does a great job of handling a very difficult topic. And so that will be on April 19th. And then also another event that is coming up, and I'm not certain about the date. Oh, it is. Thank you. The Countdown to College, which is put on by Mountain View Los Altos, and it's at Los Foundation, and they're holding it at Los Altos High School. And so they will have speakers who are alum who will be speaking to tips on what they did, and they will also have experts that will be speaking to ways that our students can help prepare for college, and parents or families are welcome. And then we had our athletes here tonight. So here's a picture of our wrestling team. And for those who are interested in seeing our future successful teams, baseball, softball, lacrosse, swimming, track and field, volleyball, tennis, and golf are currently going on now. And you can always use your app to see if there are any home games. It's a fun way to just check in and see who's playing today. And so there's always a game happening. So we look forward to welcoming everyone to attend. You can see Jack there in the front row. And then also our arts, and we have, oh, they left. We had some of our music teachers here, but we wanted to show some pictures, the field trips in action, masks for the most part on transportation, outside, less so. And we have our madrigals and our Volare concert choir. One group went to the San Jose State Invitational, and the other, as we heard, was in Hawaii and going to Switzerland. And so special thanks to San Jose, who had a workshop for our students so they could learn about choirs in the college arena. And you can see them there in action. And then wanted to share where we will have a special education brown bag session April 20th. And we are right now in the process of collecting questions, and we will have our expert, Nina Mond, who is our special ed administrator, and others. And we will be answering parent questions and hoping to continue to build community amongst our parents of students with disabilities. And then lastly here, these are students who were at the Latino Summit and Latinx Summit. And you can see here, these look to be the ambassador tour guides. And so just a wonderful event, and special thanks for the work that went into that and for the pictures. All right, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Did anyone have a question? I did.
Share one other thing that happened at the campus.
Yeah,
So you
sure.
know, on Saturday, we had our Relay for Life, which is, we had Relay for Life, for a number of years, before we got our trip track and depends on the trip track, so we stopped doing it. So this year, Sarah Alvarado and SBL, and you all know Sarah battled with cancer for all of last year, and survivors were very excited about that. They raised about $13,000, and they did the Women Area Walk from 5:30 to 6:30 on Saturday. While it was a small group, it was a mighty group, and it was very touching. And like I said, they filled the track in the area, and they raised $13,000 for cancer. So thank you.
It's great. I wanted to point out that the board is trying to be green. We have our pitchers of water and our glasses rather than disposable, although should hide my tea. And then we also at our board retreat decided to cut down on the amount of paper that we asked the administration to give us for each board meeting. Some of the things we want in printed, but other ones we're happy to go ahead and read online and ask her questions from that. So we are trying to save a few trees just within our group here. So we're getting the message too. Okay, next, communications. Do we have anyone that wanted to speak? No. Public comment. This is the time when there would be public comment on items not on the agenda. If we have anyone that would like to do that, then I will give you more of the background information on it. If not, we'll move on. Seeing none, we will move on. Consolidated motion 16.0, we have quite a few. 17. We have 17 items. Anyone have comments on the consolidated motion?
I just had a quick question. I don't think that I need to hold it up. I don't know that we ever got the personnel report.
It was emailed to us a few days ago.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize. No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. I would entertain a motion on the consolidated motion.
Go ahead.
I move to approve consolidated motion items 16.1 to 16.17.
Second.
The second is Debbie, and Fiona made the motion and seconded. Is there any other comments before we vote? No? Right, Riley, what do you think?
I approve.
Paula? Board, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's a 5-0. Thank you, board. Next, we have 17. Number 16 that I had to. 17 was no items were pulled from the consolidated motion, so we will move on to 18. And the first is 18.1, which is MVLA Avid program report. Terry, take it away.
So Terry, if I could, I just wanted to say, we're very much looking forward to hearing from our Avid leaders. This is a program that truly changes the trajectory of people's lives. And the board had requested to hear all of the great work that you're doing. So we're very happy to have you here. So Terry.
Thank you. Yes, and I have the honor of doing the introduction to our Avid program, Advancement via Individual Determination. This is a very proud program for us on both of our campuses, Mountain View and Los Altos. The purpose of this program is to prepare our students, often our minority and or first-time gen college and or low socioeconomic students in college by supporting them in rigorous classes, college prep, AP success, as well as college preparation all through high school. But this program does so much more than that. It builds community and relations with these students. They truly feel like they're a family, and that gives a synergy that accelerates their success far beyond being the 4 years here in high school. I also want to just acknowledge that the teachers in our Avid program, they're instructional leaders on our campus. Our teachers look to them for ideas, for problem solving. We often tap them on the shoulder to help us with professional learning or planning or PD. And so it's really an honor to have our two Avid program coordinators, Arancha Ariada from Los Altos and Kristen Cardenas from Mountain View, to share with you some updates on our Avid program. So thank you for being here. I feel like we don't have to go. You did such a good job. All right. Okay, so we'll just start with kind of who we are at the two sites. I'll start on the left is Los Altos. So hi, my name is Arancha Ariada, and I currently have the Avid seniors. Karen Dawson Bowman, the redhead there, she has the current juniors. Jonathan Kwan has the current sophomores, and Joanne Miyahara has the current freshmen. And I think there's a little fun fact, but I'm not sure when it pops up. Oh, no. Joanne has been teaching Avid since it was brought to Los Altos High School. So she is kind of the Avid mama amongst Avid mamas. And we always go to Joanne when we have questions. She just has such a wealth of knowledge about everything Avid. And then our counselor that kind of helps support Avid is Tamisha Wise, and our administrator at Los Altos is Fabian Morales, who's new this year to Los Altos. So that's our Los Altos team.
And I'm Kristen Cardenas. This is my first year as Avid coordinator at Mountain View High School. I currently have the Avid freshmen with Tammy Kittle. With our sophomores are Luz Escalante and Jose Rosario. Juniors Lee Kazam and Danny Robledo, who is also an Avid graduate from Mountain View High School, and our seniors Steve Kale and Joe T. Reed. You can see that we also have pictures with our counselors. At Mountain View, we have a different counselor at each grade level who then follow us through with our students. And then we have 2 teachers per grade level, but we do teach together. So we bring those sections together. So we are an even bigger family, all during the same class period with the same tutors, and again with the same counselor. And then there's that. I know. Yeah. All right. So since we'll start with the focus on the teachers, then we'll spend most of the time on the students. So I'll put up all of these bullet points and you can read through them. But I'm going to focus on our that first blue bullet point there which is about recruitment of students. So we're really fortunate in Avid that we get to meet students when they're in 8th grade. We have a fantastic partnership with our partner schools. And so as coordinators, Arancha and I get to talk with representatives from those 4 partner middle schools and junior highs and help them learn more about what Avid is at our sites, what an Avid student is. The last 2 years, we've had to do this work virtually, which has had some added challenges. But those representatives at our partner schools help us select the best students to come in as 9th graders to Avid. They fill out applications, they interview. In the last 2 years, they've done those interviews online via Zoom, meeting with teachers, meeting with other students within the Avid program. And so we then are able to invite the best students that are good matches for Avid at our sites. As I mentioned, with the pandemic, there were added challenges. And so our counselors at our sites have been instrumental in helping us find more students who maybe weren't found at the middle schools. And so we've been able to add more students throughout the year at Mountain View. And then starting in the fall, we have even more students joining, even as 10th, 11th, and sometimes 12th graders too. We work with our EL coordinators and our fellow colleagues within the other departments to help us find students who might not be receiving the support they need in order to have all the information to not only succeed in high school, but to know all of those little steps and the walls you have to climb in order to be college eligible. So we keep adding more students along the way as part of that recruitment process.
Yeah, it's crazy sometimes how even with all that, students sometimes still like slip through the cracks. I had a couple girls join this year as seniors, and they're amazing. I was like, where were you? Where have you been my whole life? So yeah, it's a constant task recruiting and building our classes. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is how we train our student tutors. So the tutors are just key to Avid. It's an important part of the Avid week, of the Avid curriculum, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But our students are taking all sorts of rigorous classes, right? And if it was just up to me, it would not, like when Kira was up here, she was speaking a different language. I had no idea what she was talking about. I could help the kids with their English essays and their Spanish homework, but the math and science, not so much. So in the traditional Avid model, they do like to have college tutors be the main tutors. And historically, we've tried many times to try to get college tutors to come, but we've never really had much luck with that, with being able to sustain that. So in our district, we prioritize peer tutors. And the peer tutor relationship is actually really great, especially when you have the younger Avid students, the freshmen, the sophomores. They really look at their tutors that are juniors and seniors as role models. And it's really nice to watch that relationship grow. And, they say hi to each other in the halls, and the freshmen feel really cool because they know a senior. And so, yeah, it's just amazing. And Avid is a very specific program. It's a very specific type of tutoring. We focus on inquiry and questioning. It is collaborative group tutoring. It's not one-on-one. So the tutors need a lot of training in it. Because if anything, they're used to tutoring one-on-one, and sometimes they're used to just like, oh, well, here's how you do it. And, we have all these rules, like the tutor should never hold the marker. It's always the Avid student. And so we give them Avid specific training at the beginning of the year so that they know how it goes. We run through typical scenarios. We have them practice both sides. And then we've also partnered with Jacob Valadez, who's the tutorial center coordinator at Los Altos. And he does additional training throughout the year, just general tutoring tips. And a lot of it dealing with the socio-emotional side to tutoring, how it can be really difficult to admit confusion, to admit that you're lost, especially to a peer. That's often harder than admitting it to a teacher. So they get lots of training throughout the year on that. And we work really hard to recruit the tutors as well. So, when it's course selection, we made a video about tutoring, hosted a Zoom call for students who were curious about tutoring. And kind of like we reach out to colleagues to find Avid students, we do the same thing. If our tutor numbers look low, we'll reach out to AP and honors teachers and just ask them, who are students that you teach that you think can make great tutors. And then we reach out individually to those tutors, because lots of times they just need that push. They need to hear from someone that they would make a great tutor, because I think students often think that they have to be over a 4.0 and a genius in all the subjects, but they really don't have to be. And we just tell them, we're never going to make you tutor in something you don't feel comfortable in, and you'll get trained. So it's a really valuable, necessary part of the Avid program.
Yeah, and at Mountain View, you actually have to be recommended by a teacher in order to be considered for an Avid tutor. One of our senior Avid tutors is actually here as a student athlete, and he's also in ASB, and he does announcements sometimes, and our students will hear them, and you can tell they're kind of like, we know him. So it's really nice, a nice way to connect students across campus. So these are some of our previous students and tutors. So good transition to our focus on our Avid students as well. So our Avid students, they do a lot and we have very high expectations for them. You can see some of those expectations here, which are also outlined in their Avid contracts, which they sign every year, along with a parent or guardian, their Avid teacher, and their counselor. So we will dive into a couple of these points with you. So one of those is enrollment in at least one AP or honors class. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we got all the bullet points down there. So this can be a big challenge. I think that's my word for the night, is challenge, because we're constantly challenging our students to go kind of outside of their comfort zone in a lot of different ways. So one of those ways of getting outside their comfort zone is by taking an AP or honors class. And that can look a little bit different at the two sites. We are very mindful about which classes we recommend, advanced classes we recommend for our Avid students. Since there's no cap on AP classes and a student's rigorous course load for colleges depends on the percentage of AP and honors classes that they took in high school, we want to make sure that the classes our students are choosing are going to help them be as successful as possible, and that they will find success in those classes. At Mountain View, we have a partnership with our AP Comp language course team. And so our students, almost all of our sophomore students, take AP Comp, and we have special Avid tutorials where students do check-ins for AP Comp, and so we have dedicated time within our class so they can get additional support in that class. And there are other classes that we're also looking to build those partnerships with, so we can see that success from our students and not only feel comfortable taking an AP or honors class, but start to also feel more comfortable within those classes, and then hopefully start to see that success both with grades and with passing of the tests. What we know, and Arancha will get to this in just a minute, is that a big barrier for our students is being able to pay for college. And so the Cal Grant is a really important grant that our students that they have access to, but it is GPA, unweighted GPA dependent. And so students do have to earn a 3.0 unweighted GPA to be eligible for that, which is why we are so careful, yes, cautious about which classes, advanced classes that we're recommending to our students.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. So yeah, I'm going to talk about scholarships and aid and all of that. So, the vast majority of our Avid students, they have to think about paying for a college in a way that many of their peers really don't have to worry about and don't have to think about too much. And it's at the forefront for a lot of our Avid students. So just to kind of give you a sense, this year, I just looked at the numbers real quick before coming here. Just amongst my Avid seniors this year, 41% of my Avid seniors, when they filled out their FAFSA, which is the federal application for free student aid, or DREAM Act, which is an application that undocumented students can fill out, because in California, thankfully, they have access to state aid. 41% of my students had an EFC, estimated family contribution, of $0. So 41% of my students, literally their parents can provide nothing for their college education. So they rely heavily on these grants. So Cal Grant is kind of the big one. And for a UC, if a student qualifies for Cal Grant A, which they need that 3.0 unweighted, their sophomore and junior year, that Cal Grant will give them $13,000 to attend a UC. So it's basically tuition for a UC. It will give them just under $6,000 to attend a CSU. Ironically, it only gives $9,000 for private schools, and private schools are more expensive. But anyway, $9,000 is $9,000. So they get that aid, which is huge. Students who are citizens or legal immigrants, they also qualify for Pell Grants, which vary dependent on how much money their parents can contribute. So for a student who got an EFC of $0, they're getting Pell Grants of just over $6,000. And what makes it tricky unfortunately, is, as college admissions are getting more and more competitive, it gets harder and harder to get into schools here in California. My students don't have the luxury of leaving the state, because as soon as you leave the state, you can't take your Cal Grant money with you. So that's $13,000 they can't use. So, a lot of students are looking to our neighboring states because California is getting so competitive. Our students can't really do that. They would have to get an incredible amount of scholarship money to be able to leave. UCs were brutal this year in admissions, and I don't know if you heard the numbers of how many students. UCLA got 150,000 applications this year, so tens of thousands of capable kids, right, that deserved a spot were getting rejected. So the UCs were pretty tricky, which leaves CSUs oftentimes great options for our kids, but in order to go and get that full experience to live on campus, they need to win scholarships. They just need to. So we kind of tell the students they have to apply to at least 5. Many apply to a ton more, kind of big ones that our students apply to and have success with. MVLA scholars, I'm sure you've heard about the MVLA scholars. They are an amazing scholarship resource for our kids. The scholarships are renewable. It comes with mentoring. They even provide stipends so that kids can do unpaid internships over the summer and not have to take a job at, Baskin Robbins or wherever. So MVLA scholars, Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Those are just some of the local ones. And then MVLA Scholars is a part of the whole MVLA Community Roundtable, which has Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, all these amazing scholarships. And I just want to brag for a second. There's a national scholarship, the Dell Scholars Scholarship, which is a $20,000 prize. It's national. They award 500. 2 of my seniors got one. So I have 2 seniors that each got 20,000 and a new Dell computer. So it's very exciting.
Thank you. And we'll show you some more data about the scholarships later. And we do provide time within class and with our MVLA mentors for students to work on those applications because again, we know how valuable that time and that money is for them.
Okay, so this is kind of what our students do. Many people often ask, what do you do in Avid, right? Because it's just people don't know. So there's actually there's a ton of Avid curriculum. And really what we do is we kind of try to cater it for where the kids are. So just very quickly, in 9th grade, it's especially now with the pandemic and with students being at home and coming to us in all sorts of different levels of readiness for high school. It's all about just, here's how we do high school, right? Here's how you take notes. Here's how you keep an organized notebook. Here's how you fill out your agenda. We do a lot of stuff with growth mindset in 9th grade. So just all that, like how to be a student. In 10th grade, at both of the school sites, very often 10th grade, it's that first time that our Avid students are in an AP class or an honors class. So we do a lot with stereotype threat because they often just feel very uncomfortable. They look around the room and they don't see a lot of other people who look like them. They start to question themselves. So we do a lot with that in 10th grade. In 11th grade, they're upperclassmen. So we're really starting to kind of begin that work with college applications. So we'll focus on leadership, making sure the students are involved on campus or in the community, that they're kind of doing something that speaks to them. They work on resume building. They do a mock career fair for the first time, which just happened, and just starting those drafts of those college essays, which most of them, they'll throw away that first draft and then start again, but at least, they're thinking about it. And then senior year is just crazy and just college. And I was just talking to my seniors and we all kind of agreed that senior year, once you feel like you've overcome a hurdle and you could take a breath and relax, nope, something new comes up. And so it's just going. So college applications, and then the FAFSA, and then scholarship applications, and then looking where you got in, where you didn't get in, where your gaps are. And so figuring out budgeting, thinking about the 4-year plan, learning about loans, all of that. So that's kind of the 4-year. And then 2 days a week, we do tutorial. Always 2 days a week, which are collaborative study groups, like I mentioned, really focused on inquiry and questioning, never giving someone the answer, but hitting them with questions so they can figure out where they're lost and helping them figure out how to, solve whatever problem it is. And in 12th grade, what we see a lot is because there's such a variety of classes that the students can take once they're in 12th grade. Sometimes none of our tutors have ever taken that class. And so the Avid seniors, they lead their own tutorial study groups, which is great because that mirrors what they're going to do in college. So it's a good preparation.
So just so you can see some of that work in action, this is an example of focused note-taking. If you're familiar with Cornell notes, that's totally old school. Now it's all about focused note-taking, FNT, for you acronym lovers out there. And so it looks very similar to Cornell notes. Cornell notes are focused note-taking, but you're doing more with it. So what we want to see from our students is we want to see their notes getting messy. If you just have these these are beautiful, right? Lovely. And they then take those notes and they do something with them. And that's how that information is going to really get solidified in their brains. They'll become, they'll understand it better. They'll comprehend that material better. They'll be able to, they ask questions on their notes if there's something they don't understand. So that way they can come to tutorial in Avid or tutorial or ACT within the school day and bring those questions to their teachers because they've been working on that content. So focused note taking is also something that at Mountain View we did school-wide. We did a training with focused note taking. So this isn't something that we're just expecting within Avid, but we're trying to build that vocabulary and that toolbox across the whole campus. So all students are becoming familiar with this study tool. Here's a little bit more. You can see really that inquiry in action and collaboration in action. We have some tutorials, some prep for a Socratic seminar. You'll notice how student-centered this work is. So students becoming more comfortable with asking questions, learning how to ask questions. So that way, by the time they are seniors and then going off to college, they've been practicing this for so many years that they can be hopefully then more successful once they're in college. And then finally, you can see our PEAK program in action. As Arancha mentioned, we had our mock career fair just 2 weeks ago. And so again, in action, you can see that inquiry and asking questions to prospective employers, listening to people at one of our peak visits. This is, as you can see, pre-pandemic without the masks and Silicon Valley companies being in person and welcoming us with open arms. But we've had such a great experience, and our students really getting that firsthand experience to see what life is like outside of our classroom walls. And then from our class of 2021, we did have almost 2 full years in virtual learning. You can see some of the schools that they were accepted to. And speaking of scholarships, they earned over $900,000 in scholarships just last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and just, percentage wise, our Avid students, they do make up about 12% of our student body. So they're, a significant part of our school population. I think that's it. So, oh yeah, if you ever want to pop in and see us, you're always most welcome. That's when we meet, kind of different times at both schools. Los Altos, it's in the morning, a little bit sprinkled across in Mountain View, but you all are always welcome.
So what questions do you have for us? Gordon?
Sure. That's a question. Who's going to ask?
You go first.
Okay. Thank you very much. Excellent. First learned about Avid when my children were in elementary school, and I kind of have to advocate for Mountain View Wisman to bring it back again, because they had it and they decided not to have it, and I'm glad it's back over there, and I'm glad that we have it here. I think it's a godsend, and what the benefit these students get out of that is just it's absolutely amazing. And my daughter was a tutor back when she was in high school here, and she loved it. So on that line, do you think we have the right number of students, or do you think that we would be better off trying to figure out how we would want to expand the number of students, and we're filling the need that we have for our district?
So that's a great question. And sometimes you'll find that there's kind of waves or classes. So for example, this year's, they happen to be the juniors this year at Los Altos. There's a lot of juniors that are Avid eligible, doing really well, and that wanted to be in the class. And, unfortunately, it is just 2 sections. And so, there's kind of a waiting list of kids that would like to be in the class, but the Avid teacher just cannot have more, right? Because Avid students in general, they're often, they need a lot, right? We put in a lot of time with these kids. And so if the classes get too big, Avid just doesn't function because we can't give them that, attention that they need and that guidance. So it happens sometimes that there's these waves. Years ago, we only had 1 section per grade, and that was definitely not enough. And it was really hard because you were seeing lots of kids that deserved to be in there, but just didn't have the spot. So I would say that for the most part, it feels good. It's just sometimes there's these sort of outlier classes, where like we wish we could just, open up a new section. We realize it's not that easy because when you open up a new section of something, right, it's got to come from somewhere. And so I don't know about Mountain View, but overall for Los Altos, the program feels like a good size. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's similar at Mountain View. Last year for the class of 2025, we had, it was finding students during the pandemic was not as easy. And so we've been backfilling a lot. So I think we have a good number right now. Could we add more? That would be amazing. I think if our partner schools also had Avid, it would help with that recruitment and kind of that pipeline, because students are already more familiar with what it is. And so that makes recruitment easier. So, yeah, I think that's, I think we're in a good place right now. And then as we move further beyond the pandemic, we'll have a better idea of what it can look like as a growing program in the district.
Is it, I guess maybe another way to ask this question. So when you meet with our partner districts and you look at and they tell you the number of students, what percentage of those students are we accepting?
It's varied a lot, especially the last couple of years. And part of it also depends on that individual determination of students who then apply. There are students who will be recommended, but they do also have to apply and go through that interview process. And so that makes it a little bit more complicated than just the solid numbers. Because again, we set those expectations, those high expectations from the very beginning. And so part of that is us being dependent on who the representatives are at the feeder schools. And we've seen some turnover with those people in recent years as well. So
yeah, because just for example, this year from Crittenden, which we get a lot of our students from Crittenden, I think I only even interviewed 20 kids, and I was like, there's no way there's only 20 first-gen 8th graders that would make a good fit, so I'll have the freshmen next year because, we stay with the kids all 4 years and then we start a new cycle. So my freshman class is going to be small, but it's kind of nice when they're 9th graders to have smaller sections. And then I just have to do a lot of recruiting once they're already there to find those kids that just didn't get recommended, didn't show up to the interview or whatever. It's so hard when you're doing it all over Zoom. Because normally we go to the middle schools, we meet them, we talk about the program, we bring our seniors, and then we come back for interviews. And so doing it all over Zoom is just really tricky. But, you know, thankfully we can add them, you know, once they're at Los Altos or Mountain View.
So last question, are you gonna have another breakfast meeting that we did? I know a couple of years, it's been a couple of years, but.
Yeah, so before the pandemic, when Kim Rogers and Lee Chasm were coordinators, we started to do our site team meetings quarterly in the morning. So without parents being able to come onto campus during school hours, we paused that for this school year, and we've had other events to try to bring people in to have these conversations just in different meaningful ways. So hopefully next year we can bring that back.
Yeah, I hope you do. That was very inspirational. Thank you.
I just want to comment. I think your presentation and your program is fantastic. I love the structure. I love the way it's planned. I love the way it involves students and families. It's a great example of how good education can be. And I'm especially impressed by that 94% of students going to a four-year college from families where they are the first to go in many cases.
They're amazing. I've had a student I have a student at Santa Clara whose mom is illiterate, you know, so we're not a perfect place, but it's pretty amazing, you know, what can happen to kids. And I just think they're so fortunate to be in this district and to have the resources that they do. It's really incredible. I get emotional thinking about it.
Well, but I think it's more than just our resources, or at least let me rephrase that. The most important part of our resources are the teachers who deliver this great program. So thank you to you, and thank you to all your colleagues and all the other educators who participate with you and the students. It's just got everybody going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
So my daughter was with Kim Rogers in bio honors when Kim was also doing Avid. So that bio honors class is being taught effectively with all of the best practices out of Avid, right? And we've talked about that a lot of times, just how do we infuse the campuses with all of the great things that you guys are doing. So I saw that the FNT came through, and of course that's what all of my daughter's binders looked like, because that's what Kim demanded. Are you getting the sense that folks are climbing on board and being pretty receptive to suggestions from you and your teams for other best practices?
Yeah, again, it's something that we're still trying to continue to grow. My personal philosophy is that relationships are incredibly important in growing a program and finding that support across campus. And so it's been a little difficult to have the school-wide professional development during the pandemic, and so trying to focus a little bit more on individual departments or course teams to talk with them about, okay, how can we support not just Avid students, but all students, right? Because these are best practices that everyone can benefit from. And so what can we do for you, and what can you do for all students? So I think that I have seen teachers very receptive to those ideas. I mean, no one likes being told what to do, but having the conversations, building the relationships to get everybody on the same page, I think we're really trying to create more of that foundation right now as we move forward. So, thanks.
Great job. Your whole program, great job. Thanks for the presentation.
All right, thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Okay, next we'll move on to 18.2. MVLA construction projects update. And that comes with an action that the team would like us to take.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to do a brief introduction and turn it over to the fabulous team from Archie Kramer and QKA. So the intent tonight is to share a brief update on where we are with Measure E. And I just want to call out, there's a much longer version of supplemental materials attached to the board agenda for the board members as well as community members, as well as a 2-page overview of the updated budget that we'll reference, but we really just want to focus this slide deck on kind of the state of construction in the Bay Area right now, some updates as well as recommended action in terms of approving an updated budget, which will allow us to move forward, plan projects in sequence, and make sure we have the appropriate funding for that. So I'm excited to have back in person. It's great to be in person, but some members of the RTM Kramer team, Rick Kramer, Patrick Mervelius, Omid Azizi, and Mark Kachoki from QKA Architects to share. So I'm going to get out of the way and turn over to them. You guys advance the slides when it's time. Yep.
Good evening. You know, it's always a pleasure to be here. I just don't get to see you guys as much as I used to. It seems like during Measure A, I was here at every board meeting. I actually strangely enjoy this part of building schools. But you know, I love what I do. And so I do miss you guys. You are, of all the boards, school boards I work with, I'd say you guys are among probably the most intelligent, thoughtful, and gracious board I've always had the pleasure of working with. Yeah, so Mike mentioned Pat Mervelius and Omid Azizi, and probably the reason I don't get to talk to you as often as I used to is because of their capabilities. So Pat, in addition to running our whole South Bay operation, you know, assists Mike to run the program. He's able to do that because Omid assists Pat, who assists Mike in running your program. So as Mike mentioned, we had a 65-slide presentation that I would be happy to go through with you if you'd like, but that 65-slide presentation really takes you through where we're at now, the past to now, the present, and then moving forward. So this presentation is really focused on the present moving forward. I guess once it was determined that I was getting the presentation, I was given a maximum of 15 slides. So I don't know what quite to think of that, but so let's get on with it. Let's see. There we go. So we have we're probably, as far as construction is concerned, about 50% through the program. Fortunately, as far as expenditures, or future expenditures, contracts in place, we're really close to 70% of the program. And that's a good thing because you know the challenges we've had up to this point. So with approximately $210 million of the program under contract, we still have approximately $95 million to go with the program. For the future projects, the core. They're testing me.
Those numbers, I think we had to pay the bill.
Better shut the electricity.
Not having 2 slides.
Yeah. It's probably wise. So the core principles of the program pretty much the same as they were during Measure A. They haven't changed. You know, comparable facilities at 2 comprehensive high schools. For modernizations, we're striving to bring the old classrooms up to the same comfort standards and with the same teaching facilities as the new classrooms we build to the best of our ability. Obviously, there's a lot of limitations there. The other thing we always try to do is what we call value engineering in the program, try to figure out ways to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves through the program. I'd say probably the biggest one in this program that we've really taken advantage of is securing $20 million in future state funding. There was an investment you made in that in order to follow all the rules that the school facility program imposes on us, but that's probably to the tune of about $3 million, mostly for air quality procedures, which, by the way, no hazardous airborne particles were found in the entire process of expending $3 million. But we don't make the rules, the state does, but you are in line for 20 million with that $3 million investment. Another opportunity is, as you know, we have a very old, non-DSA approved building. We call it 500 West Wing. That we didn't quite know what to do with in the master plan phase. We put a modest budget of $220,000 to maybe fix the roof, paint, or better yet, probably tear it down and repave that area. In conversations with Wynn and her staff, they said, why can't we do something better there? It really means it's a nice large space with that building removed. There's room for 2 classroom building in that location. The classrooms could be made flexible, used for PE, regular classrooms, take a wall down, folding partition between the 2, slide that back and have an exercise classroom. So we only had $220,000 plugged into the budget for that, and went into a little bit of schematic design through a budget of about $4 million for the project, but it would net 2 additional classrooms and be a beautiful facility right in the heart of the campus. So your staff, Wynn and her staff, strongly would like your approval on building that building. Okay, so this is not good news. As you know, we've had a pandemic, and it's really hit the construction industry as hard as anyone. This is a page I copied out of Engineering News Record magazine, ENR, which is really the Wall Street Journal of the construction industry. And I've been tracking building cost index, BCI, for 20 plus years. And when I opened this one up, I was pretty shocked. This is the national average, 14.9% inflation throughout the whole country. It's an average of 20 large regions within the country. Really what's driving that is material costs. Material costs, that 2.2% is just the monthly jump. So that's averages out to about 35% material cost inflation nationwide. So it gets worse. San Francisco is among the highest inflation rate, 16.5% in 1 year. It's never been that high in the history of the BCI, which goes back into the 70s when we had that astronomical inflation. I've never seen anything like that in my career, and now we're dealing with it. Materials are even worse, 43.8%. So I made the mistake this morning of checking to see if the March numbers were out. Hopefully I was going to see something that was flattening. That 16.5% in San Francisco in our March publication has had a 24.5% cost inflation from last March to this March. So yeah, it was not fun to see that. Hopefully it'll flatten out here shortly and even decrease somewhat, but in the history of BCI, it never really decreases. It only decreased 4 years out of 40 years. And even those years were very modest, 1 or 2% decreases. So it never gets better.
The personnel cost, is that the difference in that and the material cost?
The building cost is the whole project. Okay, the material cost is just
It's a part of the building cost.
yes, sir. It's just a very small percentage. The rest of the labor really hasn't changed that much. It's gone up a little bit. So far, contractors are still working, so they're not throwing in a huge amount of markup on it. It's really the material costs and fuel costs that are really driving the escalation. So we talked about the inflation some. We think the impact of that on our future projects, which fortunately are only a third of your program. I'm working with several districts that are just getting their programs going. We brought almost 70% of the program in on budget. We had 14 million in program contingency to start. We still have 14 million in program contingency. Okay, so everything up to this point has been brought in on or under budget. And additionally, we absorbed $3 million to secure these state funds as well. So, it's a model program. So far, you guys should be proud of yourselves. But you're facing the same thing other districts are with the balance of their programs. And some programs are just getting started. So we're hacking projects off their project list. It's really the only solution for priority projects. So trying to put a silver lining on this. You guys are sitting very good comparatively. Mentioned the 3 million in costs by Department of Toxic Substances Control and Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Not fun organizations to work with. The other thing that whammied us a little bit is DSA, Division of State Architect, clarified their interpretation of Regulation 822. The goal of DSA is really to make school buildings as safe as possible. And, seismic is always a concern. Earthquakes are always a concern. So whenever they have the opportunity, they like to enforce doing seismic upgrades to modernize buildings. And it used to be where you could do quite a bit to a building before you trigger this full seismic upgrade of the entire building. Well, they've really lowered that threshold under this interpretation regulation. And so you don't have to do much to a building to really trigger this now. And this is going to affect 2 of our projects. The elephant in the room really is the expansion of all the classrooms wings over at Mountain View High School, but it also affects one major project at Los Altos High School, and that's the music building, which we're going to expand to be more on par with Mountain View High School.
Hey, Rick, quick question.
Yes.
Your footnote down here says that, did DSA set this 500 per square foot as the 50%? Did they finally set that value, or did they include any kind of area cost of living adjustment?
Yeah, so it's they're saying that we can build a school building for $500 a square foot.
So it's not 50, so 500 is 100%.
Yeah.
So they're saying at 250. So they stayed at that level because we were fighting that level. They
Yep.
stayed there?
Oh,
wow.
They've given, and Mark will probably talk to this some more, but they've made it very challenging for us. We have to prove extenuating circumstances that say it's cost more than $500 a square foot. Remember, they're really trying to get districts to upgrade buildings, so they're really supporting this. They probably know it's a little ridiculous to begin with, but certainly in the Bay Area, it's $800 to $1,000 a square foot best case. 50% of that should be $400 a square foot, which you can do quite a bit of modernization for. 250, No, especially if you're expanding buildings, so.
Sorry, I have been tracking this with the Los Gatos Saratoga trustee because the impact to that may be your client who's had to literally cut projects off because they were gonna do little bitty modernizations that the state now deems major. And they've had to just stop doing projects. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Big
I could
sidebar. I
give
didn't
you-
realize that they had returned to it and made a final ruling.
I could give you 10 schools
Yeah.
that this is affecting of projects for other clients. All right. So what we're saying right now is we have about a $14 million shortfall. However, we do have approximately $14 million baked into that 95 million as program level contingency. Using a moderate standard for how much program contingency you need on a program, we figure that we really need about 7.2 million. So that 14 million, almost half of it gets consumed with the program level contingency. Mike has figured out how to pay for Wynn's pet project and using developer fees primarily. And the intended developer fees, of course, are to accommodate district growth. So makes sense that that would be used for more classrooms. Contributes some deferred maintenance funds. A lot of the remaining projects are repairs, fixing things, so that makes sense. We have fortunately seen higher earnings and interest than originally expected, and we're moving this next bond sale up sooner than was originally forecast. So we think we'll probably get $350,000 there. Just a token amount of general funds. And so that takes out about 6.2 million. And if we keep the 7.2 million in bid contingency, we have an $8 million problem. And we all like the math to work. So what do we do? We don't know for sure that we're going to use that 7.2 million in program contingency. If I were a betting man, I'd say we're going to use that 7.2 million in program level contingency because of where we're going with this inflation. And I think this hangover is going to stick with us a little while. One strategy, as you're aware, there's a $30 million set aside for bond approval that those bonds will be sold to build 20 additional classrooms. And make a case that we're building 2 additional classrooms. And so if you do the math on that, that'd be $3 million. And another rational justification for that is we spent $3 million in Measure E to ensure that we get 20 million in state funds. So you could look at that a couple ways as a decision. 20 million state funds, you're going to get it. You're going to get it eventually. We're going out for another statewide bond, hopefully in November. I know Governor Newsom is trying to divert more funds into the SFP program. I really do recognize the need for additional funds for our schools. State money is coming. If we library modernizations, we could defer that for the state funds. Really, a lot of the functions that are happening in the libraries right now are going into the new student services buildings. So it's not an overwhelming driving need to modernize the libraries. And a lot of students hang out there right now, but they're going to have student unions, right? So the buildings are relatively new. They don't need a lot of work immediately. So you could defer those, wait for the state funds to come in and then do the libraries and then some. Or we could also reduce the scope of the planned projects. And probably the lowest hanging fruit there is don't replace the windows, leave the existing windows there. as far as bringing classrooms up to standards of the new classrooms. Windows are very important for thermal protection. Single pane glass windows really draw the heat off of people standing next to them. And the acoustics. The double pane windows provide a lot better acoustics in the classroom. You don't have the distractions of noise outside the classroom. Plus your windows, they're old. They're very old. They should be replaced. So hopefully we're not going to get forced into doing that, but that is an option. And we need to make the math work. So this was 4 slides. This was creative on Omid's part to cheat a little bit to get 4 slides into one. This is currently what's under construction. 4 major projects. Student services buildings at both schools. Auxiliary gym here at Mountain View, that's probably the furthest along. That's taking good shape. Freestyle Academy, really looking forward to this project. I think this is going to be a great asset for you guys. But all the projects are moving along. We have our challenges with material delivery, supply chain issues, daily battles with the contractors over cost escalation things, but we have no reason to believe those projects are going to get held up too much. With that, I'll let Mark speak about the upcoming project.
Wonderful to see you, although I'd like to see all of you like we do, at least in Zoom. So this is great. Rick gets to do the hard part and I get to show you the pretty pictures. We thought as we're doing with the rest of the show, we're just going to limit the images we're showing. So I'm going to start off with the Mountain View High School classroom renovation project. There's 4 wings, as you know. We're just showing you the 300 wing right here. But this is sort of a demolition plan. I know you know this project. We've talked about it before. We're taking those gaps and we're filling them in because these are woefully undersized. Each one of these wings, woefully undersized classrooms. As Rick points out, there's a number of functional issues, not the least of which are these very kind of aged window wall systems that have all their very problems with them. So our plan is to remove those red walls that are shown as dotted, and then what we'll do is fill in those spaces to provide larger classrooms. So essentially the blue classrooms meet the larger classroom sizes, and as is typical with a high school of your size, it will leave you with some of the smaller size classrooms, which is pretty common, providing a variety of teaching spaces. Logistically, it works out very well. The core spaces that were there, we just filled in between them to provide the electrical and mechanical spaces. We did have to move a data closet in each one of these buildings to do this, but it makes for really functional, teachable classrooms. And then there'll be the finished replacements and so forth that go on with filling basically the area of the roof. Rick already made reference to, but in the 300 and 400 wings up against the locker rooms, we're not only seismic upgrading these buildings, but we're also required to seismically upgrade the buildings the spaces that attach to it. In this case, it's also the locker room. So bigger than the scope of the work of just the classrooms, it's doing the required seismic upgrade elsewhere. And then just as a kind of a sketch of what this looks like from the exterior, this presumes we do replace the windows, and I really support Rick's premise that if we do the new classroom spaces with these wonderful new windows that have acoustical as well as thermal properties, it seems odd to then have these spaces next to it with these very sort of aged systems. So we've not drawn it that way. We're sort of hoping this is the way that it turns out. So it gives you a kind of a Reader's Digest view of what the design development level where we are right now. And in this, I really agree with, it's odd, we can do a $300 million bond project master plan with you. And Rick and I scratched our heads for the longest time over what to do with that building that was there. And this has really worked out wonderfully. So we are demolishing this building. It has the structural issues and not lack of functionality. As Wynn so eloquently points out, it's a perfect center of mass of the school, providing 2 teaching spaces. I'll show you in the plan, but this is sort of a view of what it looks like with a high window bringing daylight into the classroom, and then these large kind of roll-up doors on both sides. And then in the plan, you can see better what this looks like. There's the offices on one side and some mechanical spaces, and then the classrooms which have access both from the pool deck side as well as from the students' side of the building, and then these big wonderful roll-up doors. So it's a really nice use of that space, and frankly, trying to retain the building that was there was a tragic mistake. So this has really worked out nicely in a way that makes a much more meaningful difference, I think, to students. And I'll let Rick continue on with the hard part because I get to show the fun stuff.
This next slide here. Mike, did you want to talk about the site plan? I'm going to turn back over to the microphone first. So thank you, Rick and Mark, for that was the condensed version, believe it or not. And really what we have on this slide is getting to, okay, the ask of the board and action tonight is we've discussed the challenges, the climate of construction, laid out a plan and a path for how we can still accomplish all the projects on the list. And thank you immensely to the facilities committee team and the board members that sit on that, Catherine and Phil, who vetted this with the group. Many hours back and forth, not just recent weeks, but months prior, as we knew we were coming upon these challenges of how do we still, what's the roadmap, what's the path to still get a lot of these projects done. They're still important projects, and they're going to make our campuses that much better. And I do appreciate, like, when the student board reps will talk about, oh, the steel went up, we can actually see what's going on and being built there, and all the amazing things that happen, like on the new fields we just put in, the new classroom buildings. So it's just a reminder of these are all good things, and if there's a path to get there, we might have to juggle some things, defer some projects, use some funds from different sources, but we still have a path to get there. So this is literally just a copy and paste job of the 2-page handout that shows the updated budget. And so it has that list to cover the shortfall. So the recommended action is to approve these updated budgets, project budgets, with those updated numbers, as well as the items there to move $3 million from the fourth bond sale to the third one. And then to defer some of those lower priority projects as needed until the state funding comes in. So I'm going to stop there and allow you guys to comment or ask questions or discussion as needed. And then ultimately, though, we are looking for approval or direction, if it's not this, and what that may look like to allow us to go forward.
Can you remind me, with this budget here, what does the contingency, what would the contingency fund balance be?
Yeah, so the contingency balance would go down to 7.2 million.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
And that is to be determined how much of that would be used. As Rick mentioned, if he was a betting man, given that slide he showed us, likely you need to use all of it, but that would be the first kind of go-to in terms of use of funds to help fill that hole.
So the change orders we've been approving so far have not touched the contingency funding, is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost exclusively, and I'm looking over my shoulder because you guys remind me if not, but each project has its own contingency budget. So within that project, exactly right, there's contingency within that for change orders, especially those earlier classroom projects where we pushed the design and plans through DSA. We knew there'd be changes. We knew there'd be more change orders on those projects because we want to get them out of the ground sooner. So you're right. What you approved earlier and elsewhere doesn't in fact impact the overall program contingency. These guys are very good at reminding me program contingency is really bid day surprises. So we have a budget. We think that's going to be a $30 million classroom project. We've done all that estimates. We got to bid. Contractors submit their bids. It wasn't 30 million. It was 33 million. That was the low bid. Then you pull from the program contingency, assuming you want to go forward and do the project as bid.
So conceivably, some of the built-in contingency money in projects may not be spent. We could recoup some of that as well. Is that a possibility?
Conceivably. I'm going to say that cautiously.
I'm not going to ask Rick to bet.
I wouldn't count on that, right? Because often that's known. We just, when you're doing, construction this size, those things are going to come up. So you will notice some of the projects have negative revisions, and that's for that very reason that a lot of the allowance of contingency ultimately did not appear. So you can see where there's a negative revision of $2 million for student services. And that is because
makes me feel better about giving up $7 million in current contingency.
Well, and just to add, part of that, the $14 million current, which is the former, but it hasn't been changed, $14 million in program contingency to $13,942,000. Part of that is we have that number to start the bond program, which has $295 million worth of projects. So as we move forward in the program of all the projects, and we check off, especially those larger projects, all of a sudden then you can fine tune that. All right, you need less of those funds for remaining program contingency, which allows us to reduce that from 14 million down to 7.2 and take that difference, put it towards some of those remaining projects. So that's in essence what's happened, at least with that line, is we've looked at what's remaining and apply some of that unused program contingency up to this point to go towards other projects to help update those individual project budgets.
And so, and this, sorry, but not, just another one, but taking into consideration that 43.8% increase, that's all worked into the fact that you still think the contingency fund will be enough, right? That you've banked enough into the contingency on the projects to cover it.
Yeah, let me clarify that the overall project is not 43, that was just the materials cost that could be knocking 25%. That's what the inflation for 1 year was. According to tomorrow's this morning for research, bringing up ENR's March forecast. So 25% was the first phase. We're hoping it's nowhere near that for the whole year. It's the same trend we have seen, but we do have to absorb some inflation, obviously, which I really wish, because I'm kind of at a loss. Because I've never seen this in my career, but it's 35 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. I appreciate it. So yeah, this, I guess, this is the first time I'm hearing about this new project. I guess I'm calling it WINS pet project. So I'm kind of surprised by that. And I wish this was, and I be honest with you, I wish that was a separate voting item than the overall budget. Because I really haven't had time to kind of, really vet it. So anyway, I'll come back to seeing, make a motion if we can separate that up from the overall plan. But I guess what I want to understand a little bit about this project. So this is an additional 3.7 million that wasn't in the original budget. Is that correct? That's the way I understand this?
Correct.
Right. And so I mean, we just a couple months ago we just went through this whole exercise of what to do because of the increased costs that we were facing of where we were going to be able to do this overall project and where we would take money out of to be able to pay for the project the way it was. And we decided to, basically from the budget we allocated for additional classrooms for future proofing, if we want to need additional, we decided we're going to take money from that to be able to do this. But now we've added something. To me, that seems like, what were we doing? We were just talking about how critical we were with our budget and how we didn't have enough money. And what we were doing, we were talking about, basically, removing some items in the project, right? They were looking at doing that or deferring some projects for, years on out and maybe do another bond if we want to do it. I mean, there's a lot of options we were considering. And, we ended up, choosing to basically take budget from future classrooms now and to use that. And hopefully we'll be able to recoup that, from the state later on, some of that money. So I'm kind of a little surprised that all of a sudden there's a new project showing up here with, for $3.7 million. I think that's, I guess, and I'd like to, so part of that is I'm how many other projects did we vet to decide that we want to spend this 3.7 million on this? Because I know there was a lot of other items that people wanted improvements on at Los Altos, you know, including the gyms and many other areas that I know people were talking about. And were all those other items considered and vetted? And I don't know if this was discussed in the Measury committee, all the other items, and did it come out saying this is everything, this is the thing that we really want to do? Or how, I guess I'm kind of, because I'm to me, I'm quite, this is the first time I'm seeing this, so I'm kind of surprised by that this is here, this item.
Am I incorrect? I remember that there was a shed thing, right? And there was a possibility from some of the discussions a long time ago that we were going to do something like this. This isn't the first time that I remember
That
hearing
was
about it.
$220,000.
So that was just to destroy the sheds.
Right.
Okay, whatever it was, that was the budget. It was a budget of $220,000. There was no budget for to doing now additional $3.7 million.
So Sanjay, remember there's 20 million in the budget, or close to 30 million in the budget for 20 classrooms,
Additional classrooms, yeah.
right?
That was for
So-
future,
Right, well, we're just saying the future is now. So 2 of those classrooms come out of that $30 million for 20 classrooms.
yeah.
That means in the future, you get 18 classrooms if you're lucky. So it's money that was in the budget. $30 million was there.
Okay.
2 classrooms, 10% of 20 classrooms. 10% of 30 million, 3 million.
So that's the way you're looking at it. So basically taking money out of that 20 million we budgeted for, which was lowered because with 13 million, how much of that budget was taken out of to pay for this project out of that future 20 classrooms?
So none of it thus far, right? So that $30 million has not been issued yet. We haven't built any of those 20 additional classrooms. This is actually what we're bringing formally for action would be to take 3 million of that 30 and to sell those with the third issuance of bonds, which we're on schedule to do later this spring, for this very purpose. So we did have discussions getting guidance because there was this time in the late fall, around November, where we said, hey, we told QKA, pause the classroom expansion project. We saw the cost estimates. We said, wow, this is vastly over what we have in the project budget. We need to dig in, make sure these estimates are accurate, make sure this is still the direction we want to go. We went around in circles. Maybe we just scrapped the whole thing. Is it still worth it? Is it not worth it? What else could we do? Why is the increase as high as it is? And then we had some discussions and getting consensus and guidance say, no, getting back to the goals and values of the project, it's still worth it. We understand there's a cost increase. What you saw in the earlier slide, Rick, was kind of a summary of that increase, the seismic increases. Moving some things like IDF closets because of the structure of it. You have these center block columns that you can't move, and so this is the only way to move in. So that just allowed us to move forward with the planning so we could stay on target and on timeline to get the plans in, get it to DSA, so we could go out in the ideal bid window and get those projects lined up for when we're done with student services. Included in that, and I can go back and look at those documents, this Los Altos 500-wing pavilion is actually the name I think it's got. Sorry, let me take it out of your name. But it was included in part of that discussion. I'll go back and try to pull my notes and various budget documents. So yes, it was not part of the original budget. The original budget had $220,000 for this non-DSA custodial shed to do some improvements. And in those discussions and iterations, it said, wow, here's an opportunity we have. And it's not indicated on the initial bond list, but if we need to, we could use developer fees. How do we get creative with other sources of funds to help offset this cost? So that's some of the history and how we got here, as I recall. And then the specifics was looking at that
$30 million set aside for 20 additional classrooms is needed. Well, as Phil said, this is 2 of those 20 now, right? It was not part of the original plan, so Los Altos is getting that benefit. And so there's justification of utilizing some of those funds now to build 10% of those additional classrooms.
Right, but those additional classrooms was on an as-needed basis, we would have needed it. Are we saying that now these classrooms are now needed? Because we built the classrooms that we on the original plan were the ones that we said because of the growth that we have in our student body, the original plan was built to that, the number of classrooms. So we had that. The 20 was something that we'll just want to be able to future proof depending on the growth that we have, if we need to do it. So I guess, so as I'm saying, so I guess it's these 2 additional classrooms. I mean, it wasn't at least deemed needed, when we originally came up with this project. Are we saying all of a sudden it is needed? Is that what you guys are saying?
I don't think it's all of a sudden. I think it's as you look at the growth of the population in this area, you're going to have housing come online long before any 3rd high school gets built. And as that population comes online, it's not in our projected figures. That was based on students in the pipeline at the time. These people are not in the pipeline for schools, but they're in the pipeline for housing. So I think this is an opportunity to get at a bargain rate 2 of those 20 classrooms now that would cost us much more in the future. And they could be needed sooner, and almost certainly will be needed sooner than we will ever get a 3rd high school built.
So I asked the question, Sanjay, of Mike, thank you for fielding all of my, kind of all over the map questions. Okay, the 7.9 that we're talking about that we're short, my question was, okay, is that all encompassing? Is that all of the classroom expansions at Mountain View? Is it the 2,400 square feet at Los Altos? And is it predicted cost escalation? The answer that I got back was yes. Was the 7.9 includes all of that. So it's not in addition to any other monies that we had to pull or had to borrow. So then this creative list or this list that Mike put together for ways of, okay, how do we meet the 7.9 shortfall? That's really the total predicted. So there's not, because I was envisioning the classrooms off to the side still, because we knew that the classroom expansions at Mountain View were running over budget. I had those off to the side in my head. Right. And so that was my question was, okay, wait, the 7.9 is everything, including the 2 classrooms at Los Altos. And the answer was yes. So there's not additional dollars that we're still trying to find. That's the 7.9 is the amount.
How is that? How does that? Because if that, then the number that we discussed two months ago was incorrect. Because the number we discussed 2 months ago was that $13 million that was taken from there. So, and the 7 million left. And now you're saying you're adding additional 3.7 million. That, I mean, that math doesn't work out, right? I mean, there's a disconnect somewhere.
Mike, can you go back to the slide that starts means available to meet the challenge? That one. So that is how come you can adjust for the 13 million situation in the one, but still only be almost 8 short now, because we're going to have developer fees, a little bit more use of the general fund, and so on. So Mike has strategically figured out what money to spend to make up 6.2's worth.
I understand this.
Okay, well then
you don't need to explain this. Okay, I think I understand what.
So well, that's why that's why we have the difference, and now we only have 8 left.
trying to reconcile how the overage on the classrooms by themselves came down enough to then be at this lower number, including a new building.
It didn't, because that other money is going to be used from that one slot.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to say. Didn't say it right, but.
this is why we started with 66 slides.
And I did go through the
Yeah,
rest of the
wait.
deck. I went through all of the deck, I promise.
Because there is this kind of follow the path and line by line and project by project to understand kind of the before and after picture. And right, it's hard to do it all justice, in an abbreviated format like this. And going to this slide at the end, it's too small for anyone to read it this way. So, I think what's going on is that specific classroom expansion project, right? We're referencing a $13 million, overage there as a single project, right? And so even at the time, we were focusing on that, and what's going on there, and is it still worth going forward or not? It was never in isolation because we knew there was a larger Measure E bond program budget going on there, and that the mechanisms we listed here were at our disposal, different levers we could pull to help still fund various projects going forward. And so part of that new net number at the bottom comes from that same classroom expansion overage, so an increased budget that we it's just a reality, we got to live with to do it. We've incorporated in these revision columns, right? Whereas Rick mentioned some of the projects now we're completing, we've captured some savings on. So that helps to go offset part of that classroom expansion cost if we want to do it line by line that way. So there's some savings there. There's putting pencil to paper on, okay, Mike, what other district sources of funds can we use, right? That we always knew were there, but maybe we become more concrete about what that is. So what can we use developer fees on, right? Developer fees are for expansion of space and additional classroom. We're expanding square footage at Mountain View High School. It's a very appropriate use of that. As just one example. Okay, we've always had a practice of, when appropriate, using some of our 3% required routine restricted maintenance every year, but let's put a dollar commitment to that and plug it in here, right? So that gets back to that prior slide where we chip away, going back and forth too much, right? But we chip away that, okay, we have a $14 million gap. We added these other sources of funds. We can get some more interest on the earlier bond sale. Great, now we've decreased the size of that gap, or the hole we need to fill, and what's left then is at 7.9 million. And then, okay, with that gap, now how do we plug that hole still? So, there are still many projects on that list that we're not talking about tonight, on the updated list that we're still planning to implement. Some of those have no project revisions because they're out there still, down the line. We haven't even gotten to a point of looking at, what those costs may be, but they're still on the list with the budget attached to it to still complete.
So shouldn't the budget, if what Phil is saying, instead of 20, it's going to be 18 now, we're going to build for future, we're building 2 now. Shouldn't that budget then reflect 18 additional classrooms aside now? And that budget number would be different for that, right? So it wouldn't be 20, right?
It would, but I didn't want to.
It should be 18 and should have a different number there on the budget.
Yeah, I'm going to point to here. You're talking about the line item 20 additional classrooms.
Yeah, that one right there. It should be 18, right?
Yeah, but yes, I didn't want to be presumptuous right before the board took any action to authorize that, but then that would be.
No, but you already did, it's already in the budget though, right? It's already.
Because then this would be 18 and then this would drop by 3 million down to 27 million.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Which would then free up 3 million elsewhere, which means the bottom line number is 4.9.
Oh, I see what Sanjay is saying. So I think what Sanjay is saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Sanjay, if you did that, right, if you said, well, now we're going to have 18 additional classrooms, you reduce that number by.
Because you're taking the budget from that, is what you're saying, right? That's
Right.
all.
Well, yeah, but then you have to change that number.
Right.
And so that lowers.
It would lower it,
Right.
exactly. It should lower, right? It should be 8, whatever, if you want to do
Right.
your linear.
The problem, there is an error here.
Right.
The problem is that we said we're going to build 2 of the classrooms now. And we left in the budget 20 classrooms in the future.
Sure.
So I think we need to correct that piece, right?
Yeah, so those bottom of this list, it shows the $7.9 million shortfall at the bottom of this list. If we did that, showed 18 additional classroom floor, that budget by 3 million, then this expected shortfall obviously would be 3 million less. So what this is trying to point out to you is that, okay, approve these budgets, here's the shortfall, here's the solutions to cover that gap. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, I understand what.
So
it makes sense.
I get what this is.
So if we act tonight and accept these recommendations, this budget is not going to look like this in the right column.
On the next update.
It's the one that comes forward at the next revision, the next update. We'll have that 29 number there. It'll have a 26 number.
Correct.
We haven't
that's the
approved the
problem.
shortfall part yet at all. We haven't approved the shortfall
No,
part.
we haven't approved this yet, right?
More questions or comments or anything? Would anyone venture to make a motion?
Well, I would, I'd like to move that we accept the recommended action shown on the slide being displayed and then on the last slide of the deck in our package. And that we additionally approve the measures taken to cover the shortfall of 7.9 million pointed out there.
I'll second that.
There's a motion by Phil and a second by Fiona. To that effect, from this page on the screen. Is there anything else somebody wants to say before?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable. I just feel like I need to see this and spend some time and look at it. So I'm gonna end up voting no, just to let you know. Just give you a heads up on that.
No one else has a comment before we take a vote? Right, Ava, what do you say? Okay, Riley? Ward, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so we have 4-1 vote on that.
No, Sanjay said, oh, nay, there we go.
You said nay.
Sorry, I was like,
Who votes no? It's aye.
got it.
It's a I vote no. Yeah.
Catherine, can I just make one quick comment?
Please do.
To the team tonight, when you guys first brought this to us and when we first passed the bond, the one liner across all of this was get out early, get out fast, get it done, get as much done as you can. To our neighbors who are dealing with all of our dust, to you guys who are working with the neighbors, to Mike who's getting conversations all day long. It's exactly what you did for us. And your point about having 70% of this in the bank on paper, out of the ground, it's really huge. So just a thank you.
I do think we were very lucky and benefited from some really great planning to have what we've done when it was done. And it was great that we were able to stick to that and get those schedules met. I see the future is really, it's got like a terrible divergence in it. Either it goes the way Rick outlined tonight and the cost that he said is already up stays up, or the Fed does not succeed in making a soft landing and makes a hard landing. And that is a very different situation. So either one of these paths is not pretty.
No, it's not. I think it's gonna be, I think it's, there's so many variables that are happening right now with Ukraine and, just the overall.
The ongoing dispute with China.
China, everything that's happening. So I think I wish it won't stay the 24 or 25% you saw today. But I don't know, I'm much less optimistic than I was last year. For sure.
You're another time.
Yeah, me and everybody. It's true.
Yeah, my experience is that it doesn't get better.
Yeah.
Best case stays the same. They usually gets worse. And so a sense of urgency in the programs, I instill that in all my districts. Get your big ticket projects done first and do them as fast as the schools can tolerate. Because then you're going to maximize the buying power. And you're going to avoid these kind of compensation. I have some districts that just don't like making decisions quickly. They just ponder and ponder and ponder as their buying power grows. And they end up getting disappointed because they've gotten so much less. And it's hard to tell districts, well, you should have been better with your decision making. And that's what I'm very happy about this district. I'm very sincere when I say you guys are intelligent, you're thoughtful, and you've always been expedient in your decision making. So we've been able to do a lot more for the students than some districts would do.
Are you able to pre-buy the material and I know it's a tough one, right? To buy in advance anything like so.
Well, I'm doing that now with Cambridge School District. We're buying all the mechanical units because we got to replace them in the summer in 5 schools. And had we not pre-purchased those, first of all, we wouldn't get them in time. But they would cost much more with it. So we locked in pricing. Elementary told me once the definition of owner furnished equipment, furnishing it to the contractor, is defective and delayed. And so, anytime that's a last resort, you really want the contractor to be responsible for it, because then if it's defective or delayed, it's the contractor's responsibility to correct that.
I'll just tell you, I ordered a case of tennis balls over the weekend. I have to wait over a month for delivery.
Welcome to our world.
It's like tennis balls. Again, they're out. They're gone. Everything is good.
I have to get a phone call every day. I can't get this time. And we have to pivot, try to figure out how to stay on schedule, change material, something acceptable. And then our staff, they've had to put in a lot extra effort trying to find alternate materials. The team's been very commendable. I'm very proud of them.
We are looking all the time, purchasing early, can we store it, is there a place we can put it on the school site? Is it safe? When's the pricing going up? When do we need it? We're evaluating it every single day. It's just a moving target, but we are looking at those options for sure. Sure.
I want to say thank you so much for your whole team for putting this together, for Mike, for working with you guys, for Phil on the facilities committee.
One last point I want to make, and that is, I really appreciate more than ever the flexibility of your designs, because I think we are in a position where we might have to repurpose some of the things that are designed, and you have made that easy to do. So great work there too.
I think the only thing consistent in schools is that everything changes. Learned that the hard way a couple times. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
So thank you for staying out this late with us tonight.
Thank you.
So we move on to 18.3, school safety plan, first reading.
Thank you.
Do you want to speak to this a minute, Dr. Meyer?
Absolutely. 18.3 is a first reading of the safety plans for Alta Vista, Los Altos High School, and Mountain View High School. And we plan to bring this back on April 25th for a second reading and hopefully approval. I want to thank the school site leaders who worked on this. We have facilities, assistant principals, and principals who've been a part of the planning. And also let you know that we have already received some pertinent comments and appreciate them. And we'll be in the process of upgrading and sending a final document to you prior to the April 25th board presentation.
Do people have, besides the comments that you sent in ahead of time, some of them were just typos or these kind of errors, but of other ones too, do you want to say anything to the public about them right now, or?
Well, the only question, I just wanted to get more data from Mountain View High School on the California Healthy Kids Survey. Just wanted to get, just look at the dates, not just for this school year, but the previous school year. And Michael did send that to me. I don't know whether he sent it to everybody else.
I know he sent it to you and we're incorporating it into the plan. It shows patterns and trends of the health. Yes, yes.
Yeah. I wanted the same data.
Yeah.
And he sent it.
He did, yes, thank you.
And that's one general comment I would say is that over the years, it's nice if we can get the plans more consistent with each other, the different schools. So I know everybody runs their own ship in a slightly different way, but certain things that we kind of compared, do we have this, do we have that? It'd be nice to see both of them have, even if it's different, to be similar enough that we can understand how come. So, yep. So we'll see the final versions in another month. Okay. So that it was not action then, and we'll move on to 19, yes, 19.1 is review of calendar events. Anybody want to say anything about the upcoming meetings? Are for the future board meetings are listed, but there's other things coming up in the community and at the different schools, different awards. We're starting into award ceremony season. And
Catherine, can I throw out the Hoffman Awards dinner through the School Boards Association where Mountain View ambassadors will be honored is May 11th. And let's see, that sign up came out today and we do have 4 free seats because we are a winning program. So I'm assuming that we want to bring our teachers and maybe students and whoever in that capacity. But anyway, that sign up came out today.
Yes, the Hoffman Awards and also the Challenge Team Breakfast will be on May 12th, I believe.
Yeah.
So we will include that information in the weekly update. But if you're interested, we definitely want to get a table as a district and make sure that we're there. We will have an award winner at both. So being part of the 5 is you're one of the Hoffman Award winners, and then they have a.
Yes, that's a Wednesday night. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's at Michael's. Yeah, welcome to Michael's. And then the next morning, May 12th is at Michael's too for challenge team.
we might as well just sleep over because that breakfast is very early in the morning. Any other comments on calendar? Anyone have communications or correspondence? No? Hearing none. Board suggestions for future board reports or meetings?
Yeah, something came out of the safety plan that I saw that I was kind of wanting to get some more information on is the restorative justice. Because I think they're different at the 2 schools, or at least they were. So I would like in the future to have a report on what the restorative justice practices are at each of the schools.
Okay. Anyone else have any additional suggestions for now? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the date and time of the next meeting. The next meeting will be April 25th, a regularly scheduled meeting, I should say, will be Monday, April 25th, here in this room at 7 p.m.
Is April 5th still a placeholder?
That would be a special meeting.
Right, that's just not.
It's hard to know.
It is likely not going to happen.
That is not on the agenda.
Likely not, yeah. It's probably not gonna
It's
happen.
qualifying it, it's stopping it, but
Yeah.
it will.
Probably.
Okay, I just had it as a placeholder.
Okay. Okay, we do not need to resume closed session, so we're not going to do 20. So that moves us on to 21. Oh, we didn't need to do that either because we didn't do 20. So we are ready to adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Phil, second by Sanjay to adjourn. What do you think, Ava? Riley? Okay. The board, all in favor, say aye. Aye. 5-0 vote. Thank you, board. Thank you, staff, for preparing for us for it.